Welcome to the Sober Podcast. This is your host, Jamie Brickhouse. And our Soberlebrity guest today is Chelsie Cahoon, who is also known as the Sober Raver. I can't wait to hear more about this. Chelsie is a model, content creator, and entrepreneur who has started a company called Music is the Drug. And today's topic, by the way, is how I party sober, the Sober Raver. So thank you for joining us on Sober Podcast, Chelsie. I'm excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jamie. I'm really honored and I've been looking forward to this. I'm ready to dive in and talk with you.
Great. Well, dive in and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you found sobriety.
Absolutely. So my story is a little bit unique because I never actually found sobriety because I've actually been sober my entire life. So
Oh
it's
my
a little bit,
God.
yeah. So it's a little bit of a different story than some people. But basically, my story is that from a very young age, I just knew that I never wanted to start consuming alcohol or ever using substances. It's a scary thought to me, and my parents were always like, you don't need anything, and I'm like, yeah, I don't ever want to drink. And
Mm-hmm.
I always tell the story of how I won the fifth grade dare essay contest and read to my fellow peers about how you don't need alcohol. And I think that stuck with my brain for most of my life. And I actually didn't think about dare as an adult, like how that impacted me, but I think that it did.
Yeah.
So,
And DARE is, tell our listeners, for
oh,
those who may not know.
so yeah, so if you didn't grow up in America, then you might not know what DARE is. DARE is a program that they had for fifth graders in elementary school, and it was to show kids basically that you don't need drugs or alcohol. And they had a contest, or they have a contest at every school, and people win, and you get to read the speech that you wrote about how you don't need to use drugs or alcohol. And I just happened to be one of the winners, and I got to speak in front of the entire class, and that was really awesome for me because I felt really proud in that moment, and I think that just stuck with me. But yeah, as I got older, I definitely went to parties, and I remember turning down my first beer. I was like,
Uh-huh.
okay, that's cool. I don't ever want that. Like, I just never, people always ask me, like, have you ever wanted to try? And I'm like, no, I really just have never wanted to. I've taken a sip of beer once and it was awful. I was like, I don't know how people do this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so for me, it was like never wanting to do it. And I saw people around me struggling with alcohol problems in high school, even. And I
Right.
was just like, I don't understand. Like, I understand why people do it because life is hard, but I didn't understand why they wanted to get completely drunk because that was scary to me. Um, but I did go to a party college called Radford, which was interesting being
Mm-hmm.
sober because there's way more drugs in that college than there was high school.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. And people didn't usually believe me when I'd say I was sober because I'd go to all the frat parties. I'd do everything. So, like what you said, the topic was today, partying sober. That's kind of like what I do and what I've done my whole life is party sober. I go to these fraternities, I go to the clubs, and I just get high on life.
I love it.
And
And before we get into the party bit of it, I just want to back up a little bit
Mhm.
about your experience or non-experience with alcohol and drugs, which I find fascinating that that you've never so you've never tried a drug, right?
I have never tried anything. So I will say, like, just to make everybody clear, what I have taken is birth control, which is considered a drug. I've taken Tylenol and, Aleve. I've taken painkillers for, headaches,
For
but I've
medicated
never,
reasons, prescribed
I've
reasons.
never taken, I've never done weed. I've never done like hay or Coke or
And you've
anything
never
like
been
that.
drunk.
Never been drunk. I've never had a drink of alcohol, and I've never had weed.
And you so and it wasn't you didn't witness alcoholism and drug addiction in your family, like to see.
So I would say my grandpa was an alcoholic, but
Mhm.
it didn't really click with me as a kid, so that's not why I chose my path. I really just chose it on my own. And like I said,
I
I
love
do give Dare some credit.
Yeah, I love that. I'm the actress, television star from the 70s, Carol Burnett. She famously did not drink. Her parents were alcoholics, and she was raised by her grandmother. And as far as I know,
Okay.
from the story about it, I know. So she didn't drink because she saw that it ruined her parents' lives, and she never wanted to drink. Um, so your story, which sounds more, or not sounds, but is more typical, I think.
Hmm.
People who don't drink or drug at all because of that. But which I love your story because it is unique and interesting.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
Many people have to learn how to have fun in sobriety or redefine what fun means to them in sobriety. So, you didn't have to do that because you like to party
Mhm.
and have always done it sober. And so, tell us now about your party
Yeah.
evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. So, being in high school, it was difficult at times because people didn't understand my lifestyle, and I probably got made fun of a little bit. I got left out of things, but it didn't really bother me because I didn't really want to be around those people anyways. So in high school, I mean, I lived a normal life. I'd go to the parties that I was invited to. I'd go to the dances, and it was just repulsive to me. So I just had fun with my friends and didn't really think about what everyone was doing. And then when I got to Radford University, which, like I said, is a party school, it was a lot different because there's people drinking every single day of the week, doing
Mm-hmm.
drugs. You see drugs on
Of
the
course.
street. It's kind of crazy. But again, I didn't let it bother me. I would go to the fraternities and I love to dance. So I would just go to these places and dance the night away with my friends. And I was also, the DD. I made sure all my friends got back safely. So I was like the friend that you wanted to have because I was a good time, but then I could make sure that everybody got home safely and I made sure that everybody was taken care of. And then after college, I'm a festival goer. My name's the Sober Raver.
Yeah.
And I adopted that name because I was at a festival one time and this guy asked me what I was high on. And I said, well, I'm actually a sober raver. And I had never said that term, that like phrase out loud. And I was like, that sounded pretty cool. I'm going to change my name to that on Instagram. So I did. And here we are. And I'm trying to show people that you can have an amazing time at these festivals and raves completely sober.
That's great.
So,
And speaking of showing people that they can do this sober, um, as I was saying, many people have to learn how to have to learn how to have fun
mhm.
in sobriety. And oh, it's not going to be any fun now that I'm not drinking and using drugs. I'm not going to be able to dance.
Right.
I'm not have sex. I'm not going to, or it's just not going to be. It's going to be a bore. Are there any lessons you personally have learned that you can share with our audience about how to make that adjustment?
Yeah, so I think that if you have, used drugs or alcohol in your life to, I know a lot of people, like my friends especially, they like one of my best friends, he's kind of socially shy and like he
Mm-hmm.
uses alcohol to open up, but he actually stopped using it and uses CBD more now. I'm not sure, but anyways, you can actually just surround yourself with people like myself. Like, he said that being around me helps him because he sees that I have a good time sober. So I think out of all the podcasts that I've talked on, I think the number one tip that I've given to people is be around people that support you and that are gonna accept you for who you are and aren't gonna put things, in your face. Um, because I feel that when you're surrounding yourself with people that are pressuring you, it is harder to enjoy the environment that you're in because you feel like you have
Right.
to be on the same level as them. So
Mm-hmm.
I say that if you've been down that road, definitely surround yourself with better people. It might have to cut people out. Also, just there's different methods. Like I pray about things. You can meditate. Just try to do whatever you can to find that inner confidence within and know that you can do anything completely sober. I will also say that on Instagram, there's a huge community of support for sober people, sober ravers. There's a Facebook group called Rave Sober that I always
Yeah.
name drop.
Okay.
I'm actually an admin on that group, so if you join, I can accept you right away.
Oh,
It's
cool.
called Rave Sober,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a beautiful thing about social media. Even though it can be a toxic place, there is a community of amazing people that will help people that are new to sobriety or have been in sobriety. So definitely support, community support is like number one for sure. Music helps too. Obviously I have a brand called Music Is the Drug. So
Yeah.
I think that that can give people confidence. So there's just a lot of different things, but I will say too that if you have been around like the festival scene or club scene and you're new to sobriety, you might want to just, take it easy because sometimes it might be triggering. So
Yeah.
that's why you want to have good people around you to keep you grounded.
Great tips.
Yeah.
And this is a great time to stop and say thanks to our sponsor, Stephanie Weiss. She's a certified health and recovery coach based locally in Connecticut and offering virtual services nationwide. If you would like more information, please reach out to info@sobernetwork.com. That's info at sobernetwork.com. But let's get back to Chelsie Cahoon, and we're discussing partying sober. Um, we hear that phrase, party sober, often in the community. And tell me again the name of your company.
It's called Music is the Drug.
Music is the Drug. Um, so tell us about that and how it got its name and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I became the Sober Raver in 2016, and then the next year I was like, I really want to start a company outside of just who my name is, and I always wanted to start a company around sobriety, but then I
Yeah.
realized that music is like my number one passion in life, so I kind of wanted to combine those two, and I took the name from my Instagram bio. It said "Music is my drug," and I just changed the word "my" to "the," so it's "Music is the drug." And
Yeah.
basically, I wanted to create this company to show people that music can be extremely healing. And it's literally a drug itself. Because when I go to these music festivals and these raves and these concerts, I truly feel high off of just the vibrations alone. And that's basically the mission, is just to show people that with or without substances, you can get completely high off of music, sober. And people are like, oh, I don't know how you do that. And it's like, well, I,
That
first
was
off,
my next question. How do you do that? Because especially when, and I know in the gay community, especially gay men who go to these, circuit parties and they dance and dance and dance and do a lot of
mhm,
drugs and feel like they connected with the music through the drugs.
mhm,
And of course it can keep them dancing longer and all that. And then a lot of them, once they get sober, feel like they can't do that anymore.
right.
And so you step
So,
in and you tell them.
yeah, I just say find an artist or a group that you absolutely just love, go
Mhm.
to their show and get like really close to the music and just try to focus on that alone, and don't focus on what's around you, and just try to embrace that moment and see how you feel. And I mean, some people are like, well, I haven't been able to achieve that, but maybe it takes some time to feel it, or maybe you just need to have somebody there to help the feeling be even better. I mean, everyone's different. Everyone's gonna, maybe I do feel things stronger than some people because I've never used drugs or substances. Maybe some people become numb to that feeling once they've used substances, but I will say that regardless, it is a beautiful thing to enjoy a show sober. And I know that everybody can feel something if it's their favorite artist, for sure. And you can even have a Shirley Temple and get crazy with that. That's what I do. I drink Shirley Temples and get that little bit of sugar rush, if you will, which, I mean, sugar is technically a drug too, so I don't do it a whole lot, but every
Right.
once in a while. It's better than alcohol. It's better than the alternative. So,
And
you know,
alcohol is loaded with sugar. So there you
yeah, there you go. So, I mean, even if you need that little bit of jitter, it can help. But I think that music, especially
go.
like
Have you had
songs that
it?
speak to each other. What's that?
Finish that thought, then I'll ask my next
Oh, I
question.
was just gonna say, especially like songs that speak to like the person listening. Like a lot of lyrics are very relatable. So I think that you can achieve that feeling a lot when you hear a song that means something to you.
Hmm. Have you have you had any experiences with partying with someone who's new to sobriety and 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 helping them navigate?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I'm an admin on the group on Facebook called Rave Sober, and
Yeah.
I've actually met up with a few people on there that were new to sobriety, and we were at a festival together, and we just had a really good time. And you know, even with my brand, like I have my own group on Facebook called Music is the Drug. It's a Facebook group, and we're all
Hmm.
on there. And I'll tell people festivals that I'm going to and say like, hey, if you want to hang out with somebody that's sober, I'm here. There's people here for you. Like if you want to be in a group of people that aren't doing drugs, because I know that a lot of times if you do, then you might be inclined to do that. So yeah, I've actually hung out with a lot of people that are new to sobriety, and I try to just have fun with them. And they're like, I'm so glad that I got to spend this time with you and see that sobriety is fun. And obviously, I can't speak on becoming sober and going to an event. So I never try to put myself in the shoes of somebody that has struggled with addiction.
Right.
But I show people that I've never wanted to do anything, that sobriety is beautiful, and that's all I know, and that's all I would ever want to know, because it is a wonderful thing, and you save a lot of money too. That's what I like to tell them. Save a lot of money. I should be a billionaire. I don't know how I'm not right now.
Right.
Goodness.
Right. Well, of course, you never spent the money on the alcohol and drugs.
Exactly.
So yeah, yeah. That's exactly one of the first things I noticed when I got sober was
Yeah.
how much money I was saving. Um,
Hmm.
What is, we often ask our guests, most of whom are recovering alcoholics and addicts, what the best lesson they learned in sobriety and how did it help them. So obviously you've always been sober, so it doesn't quite apply, but what's since you've been an advocate for partying sober and for and what your company Music is the Drug does, what's been one of the lessons you've learned since you've been
Yeah.
doing that?
I think what's really important is staying true to who you are and being yourself, not being afraid to be yourself, because
Yeah.
a lot of people that use these substances are afraid to be themselves because they feel like they might be, like I said earlier, socially shy, socially awkward. So I think what's important at the end of the day is just to have self-love, like find out how you can love yourself, and whether it be, like I said, prayer, reading scripture, or even if you're not religious, there's, a lot of different things online, like resources, there's therapy. I think there's a lot of different ways that we can figure out how to love ourselves and really truly embrace who we are. Because there's been points in my life where I'm like, okay, people don't like me, I'm sober, like I'm a loner, I'm an outcast. But then I'm like, you know what? That's pretty cool that I'm sober because I'm at an all like party school right now, and I'm different, and I learned to embrace who I was, especially in college, because I had everybody around me doing different things, and I was like, you know what? Instead of feeling like this, I'm gonna
Yeah.
choose to embrace this without like putting myself on a pedestal, feeling like I'm better, but more so embracing who I am and using it for good. So during college, I was like, I'm going to do something that, I knew before I started my brand, like 3 years in advance, that I wanted to start something. So I think that it's just important to love yourself, love who you are, because you're all amazing just the way you are. Whether you're struggling right now with addiction, whether you're in recovery or you're sober, you're all amazing just the way you are. And I just want you to know that life is possible completely sober, and you're going to have a good life. If you make the right necessary changes, I know that y'all can all do it.
Right. And and you mentioned earlier, well, and you uh mentioned about that they're you can meditate and pray, and even if you're not religious,
Mhm.
but of course people can be spiritual, can find
Absolutely.
spirituality without being in a religion,
Yes.
or practicing a religion. And you also mentioned earlier that that you pray sometimes. So and of course for a lot of people getting sober, spirituality is often part of the program, and sometimes very hard to
Mhm.
adopt and find that. What is your uh, program of spirituality or prayer and meditation?
Yeah. So, for me, I've always said I love God. I don't even like to use the word Christian anymore because there's so many people out there. And I was having this talk with my grandmother today. She was actually asking me, my grandmother was asking me today how I felt about, the LGBTQ community. And I was like, I love them. I love them
Mhm.
for who they are. And I think that people that judge those people are wrong for that. So, for me, like, where was I going with this? I'm trying to think where I was going with this. Basically, for me,
Prayer,
I was trying.
meditation, oh
What I was
God.
what I was saying is there's so many fake Christians. That's where I was going with this. There's so many fake Christians out there,
Mm-hmm.
that claim they love God, but they judge people because they think they can. For
Right.
me, it's like I love God and I love everyone, no matter what they believe in. So for me, I just like every day I'll just say a prayer. I will write down. I will journal. I will write down things that I'm thankful for. I will manifest things. I'll pray for the world. I'll pray for the LGBTQ community. Like, there's so many different things that I just write down every day. And I think that journaling is super important.
Mm-hmm.
Being outside in nature, that's where I really feel closest with my spirituality. And yoga is a good thing. Like you were mentioning, meditation and yoga are super good ways to connect, with whatever you may believe in. And music, of course, music is awesome. And I also play music and I sing. So those are two ways that help me connect to and just, embrace who I am. There's so many different positive. That's like what my brain's about too. Like I say, music is a drug, but there's so many drugs that are positive. Like, singing is the drug, dancing is the drug.
Right.
I have a
Right.
shirt that says pasta is the drug because I love pasta. So, yeah. So I just try to show people that there's a lot of good addictions. I hate the word addiction, but that's what I try to do. As long as
Right.
it's not too much, but.
Well, thank you, Chelsie. This has been wonderful chatting with you.
Yeah.
And like I said, I love your story of sobriety, your whole life. But living, but also at the same time, you've never been a drinker or a user of drugs, but you do live a sober life. By that, I mean what a person who's become sober, uh, in that they have a practice and a and a routine and a spiritual part of their program, but they also have a lot of fun. Um,
Yeah.
so that to me defines sobriety, and you're a living example of that. So thank you for being on Sober Podcast today.
Yeah.
And to all of our listeners, thank you for your continued support, and visit us on www.soberpodcast.com and all places that you find major podcasts. Leave us a review, sign up for our mailing list, or get detailed contact information for today's guest, Chelsie Cahoon. It's all up there. I'm your host, Jamie Brickhouse, and you can find me on TikTok, where I tell a true story in high heels every day. Jamie underscore Brickhouse. Signing out from the Sober Podcast. Tune in for another next week.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chelsie.